Hi and welcome. Today we'll talk about the basics again. I'll tell you a couple of concepts, wordings, and ideas of mine, and I hope you'll be able to wrap your head around them and level up your own communication, and thusly level up communication and efficiency in your team, in your corporation, and make a social change. Today we'll talk about empathy. Last time I already alluded it a little bit that empathy is the way to access your communication channels and to level up and to understand more of what is being said. But empathy is anything but easy. I said it's the easiest and the best way into it, and that is correct, but it's never very easy to do. It's always a change, and changes are difficult to take. But the change starts with you. And you can take the first step already today to get better at it. So, what do we do to get better at empathy? The biggest problem that we have with empathy and working it into our own life is that we are essentially the main character of our own life and making in our own world. And thus, we cannot relate to other ants and people and birds. It's very difficult. We are here, we are us, and we just believe in ourselves. And that's it, because nothing else changes this. This is our lives. We take everything else with just a grain of salt, and that grain of salt is already big enough to be less trusting, be less empathetic. Now, why is empathy important? Empathy will help you better the communication. I talked about it last time already. We have two channels of communication. If you only understand one channel, you don't have the whole picture. To get the whole picture, you need to get from the data channel to the emotion channel. And that's where empathy helps you. And already, if you can start being more empathetic, you will be able to understand more of this emotions channel and then get a bigger, fuller picture of whatever the conversation is about. You can use it in every context. And that's why this is universally good for you. How do we get better at empathy? There's a couple of tricks that you can do. Most people say, oh, I should just say, what if that was me? What if that is me? But let me tell you, it's not that easy, and that trick most of the time doesn't really work. If you just go and say, oh, what if that was me? You don't take it too hard. You don't really get the whole feeling of empathy. And that's what we're about. We're trying to get into this emotions part. So we need to open up somewhere to let some feelings in from the other person. Most of the time, they are not really good. We don't want them. So it's difficult to really get into it. So my trick that I'm going to give you right now just circumvents this, what if it was me, and reframes it a little bit so you have an easier way to start getting to understand the other person. Now, how do I do it? That's actually very easy. Let's get into an example. My coworker dislikes her boss, and she's venting to me about it. She dislikes him. She doesn't like the work he's giving her, and she doesn't feel valued. She doesn't feel appreciated. So all of this is coming towards me. So most people think I can empathize if I just tell her, oh, and think in my head, oh, what would I do if my boss would be talking to me like this? The crux of the matter is, if I think about that, I might just start labeling and valuing the things her boss said as, that's not a problem. I wouldn't need to deal with that. If the boss says, oh, you're lazy, you don't do your job well enough, I would be offended because I work so many hours and it's not something I can relate to. So there's a lot of things of relating to that we will not be able to fix if we just say, what if I was in that situation? We do something else instead. What we do is we get the other person, so in this case, my coworker, to label their feelings on a scale. So we ask her, you're very upset, or you sound very upset. On a level of 1 to 10, where 10 is the most upsetting you've ever been, how much does this situation upset you? And she's going to give you a random number in between that. I mean, I'm saying random, but it's not a random number. It's a very important number to her. She says on an 8. So on a scale of 8 of upsetness, where 0 is absolutely not upset and 10 is absolutely super upset, an 8 is a pretty significant deal. And what we do now is we put ourselves into her situation. We make an easy comparison. We use this number and put it on our own scale. We just scale it up. It doesn't matter how small her scale or how big her scale is. If we adjust it and put it onto our own scale, that's how we get very good at empathy. So we just scale up the 8 to our 8 and say, okay, what would be a situation in which I would be an level 8 upset? And then you can get any example. Someone crashes my car. Someone destroyed all the windows in my house. Someone broke up with me. Someone, like, I don't want to get into anything, but everyone out there, you all have a situation where you're going to be, and you're going to be like, this level 8 upset for me is a very big deal, or it's a very not big deal. You have your own scale, and you adjust her level 8 scale to your level 8 scale. And thus, voila, we're here. You have successfully empathized. And now you just need to put it into communication. So, oh wow, a level 8. That sounds very upsetting. You must be really sad about it. You must find no solution. You must not have a way out. How can I help you with that? In my case, if that would happen to me, I would be super upset. I would just leave the job, or I would talk to the person to really, because it overstepped the boundaries. There's so many ways now where the conversation can go, because you finally started to understand how that person feels. So how is it? That's the first step. And that's the first way to get better at empathy. So we take this as a basis for starting to get better at empathy and starting to understand more of the whole picture of our communication. Thank you so much for being here. See you again next time. Cheers.